Right, hello everyone, welcome back. Procurement Finance Coffee Break. What are we going to do today? Actually, we're amazingly not going to do a pure finance topic, which is amazing. We're going to talk about RPA. What's RPA? Robotic Process Automation. And, you know, for anyone that thinks maybe you haven't done it, I'll prove you wrong in just a minute. But who are we? Richard Beaumont, background in procurement.
Clair Green, finance transformation expert.
There we go. So, RPA, we're going to talk about that.
Yes, yeah. I thought it's just one of those words that people I've heard use, and then I've realised that not a lot of people know what it is or what it can do. So I thought it was a useful topic to demystify a little bit for people not familiar with it.
Cool. Right. So let's just sort of get that thing. I can bet that every single one of you who's watching this has been on the receiving end of RPA. Don't believe me? Have a look in your inbox. You know, if you looked at something on Instagram, you know, some fitness app, and now you're getting that daily email saying, are you still interested? You know, we can help you.
Or you've got some things left in your shopping cart.
Yes, or something left in your cart.
Have you not? Yes.
You know, and annoyingly offering you a discount, which they didn't offer you when you first went to buy it. You're on the receiving end of RPA. That is a piece of technology that is automating the process of sending emails. So much as it might feel like someone loves you and is sending you private personal emails, they're not. It's technology. And that piece of technology is automating the repetitive task of sending chase emails to you to either buy something or whatever it is. And in a nutshell, that's what RPA is. It's taking a manual, time-heavy, simple, repetitive task. Think about, you know, if we were talking about the robot world, physical robot world, you know, putting letters into envelopes and putting a stamp on it. You know, you would get a robot to do it. You wouldn't employ a team of people. So there's a whole bunch of things which you're going to hear about in a minute where you can replace that. And the really important thing for me about RPA is that it isn't a lot. I don't believe it's a long-term solution. It's a short to medium term where you're making a decision. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you know, let's say you're processing purchase orders. You know, and you've got a team of people who are filling out the same form, sending them off and matching the same information or whatever it is. You can use technology to do that. And the reason you would get technology to do that in the short term is because it's a lot more efficient, more accurate and quicker than using people to do it. But really what you're doing is you're realizing a saving in the short term while you take a bigger decision, which is this something which is core to our business, in which case I probably need to wrap it into the wider ERP? Or is this just something that I shouldn't actually be doing? I'm making it simpler in the short term, but actually what I'm going to do is outsource it and just get rid of that together.
So I can think of two situations that I've seen with clients in the last, let's say, 2 years. So one with a large bank that had a massive IT landscape. Certainly it could automate a lot of tasks, but what they really needed to do is move to one ERP system and one EPM system. And that probably wasn't going to happen within, 3-year time frame, maybe not even a 5-year time frame. So what you could say to them is like, okay, let's do a bit of a time and motion study of what activities your finance and your admin teams or your procurement teams do. What are really basic tasks that in the medium term don't really need to be done by people, and that those things could be ripe for RPA in the medium term to make some cost efficiencies, while they're looking at actually, you know, putting the business case for a larger transformation project together, which sometimes when it's with this big corporate, it can take 2, maybe even 3 years to get the investment and decide to go ahead with a big transformation program. And the other one is, in smaller businesses where perhaps they're the small to medium-sized business, where perhaps they're better placed to make a decision and act quickly to replace their core ERP and EPM systems. And you think, well, a good ERP system and a good EPM system should avoid the need from any RPA to be involved. But it may be that they have a fairly good system, don't need to upgrade, but they're just like, let's say, you know, some tasks on the peripheries that, as you say, are not core to their business, but would make efficiencies in having them automated.
So if we think about the things that, okay, the processes that, you know, could benefit from RPA in finance, I mean, safe to say, I imagine that lots of processes are boring and repetitive in finance. So there must be a long list of ones that you could go on.
Yeah, certainly. So I've had to think about things that I think are sort of right things if they're not already taken care of with your current ERP system, your current finance system. So, for example, automating the validation and reimbursement of employee expenses. That could be one. Streamlining the manual entry of financial data into accounting systems. Automating the reconciliation of credit card transactions with statements. That's a lovely, thankless task that no one would want to do. Enhancing the accuracy and efficiency of payroll calculations and disbursements. You know, normally for payroll you get a standard report each month. You could feed that into an automation, maybe to put that into a journal ready for posting. You know, generating routine financial statements. Let's say, you know, you've got you know, certain reports that are sent out manually on certain days to certain departments. You know, all that could be automated. You know, allocating, looking at rules for allocating cash, validating vendor invoices against purchase orders, streamlining data collection. I mean, you've just got to look at the process, and if the process is fairly simple and you can assign rules to that process, you know, if this, do this, if this, do this, and if it's none of these, then spit it out into an error report for someone to look at. And perhaps that list of 10 rules accounts for 80% of the time that transaction happens, and then you only have 20% of that people have to review or something like that. Then that's an efficiency gain. And if you can make a business case for deploying RPA, that will pay off in let's say a 3 or 5 year time frame, then great. What about procurement for you then? Think of some examples.
Obviously, nothing is boring and repetitive in procurement. If only that were true. Look, there's a ton of stuff, right? And you know, depending on what your technology currently does, I mean, let's just go through the list. Again, it comes down to the thing of anything that involves a person or group of people doing the same task again and again. That's a candidate for RPA. So think about it. Preparing and sending out purchase orders, three-way matching of purchase orders with goods receipts for account and invoices for accounts payable, sending out questionnaires to suppliers and collating the responses, monitoring risk on a weekly, monthly basis, you know, getting questionnaires back or reviewing open source media channels or databases. Sending out questionnaires for suppliers when you're onboarding them. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff where if you just think about it, if you've got to do it more than once, and I come back to the example of, you know, preparing and posting a letter, if you're doing that, there's an opportunity for you to automate that process, which delivers efficiency. And I guess, you know, the thing that's now going through my head is, you know, I'm sure people, you know, you tell me, or the audience, you know, thinking, well, surely people aren't still doing manual processes for the kind of stuff that you and I talked about. I mean, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's it's fair to say that there's a lot of businesses, the businesses that have end-to-end integrated systems with up-to-date ERP systems and EPM systems are in the minority, and I would say mainly in the larger cap companies, listed companies. If you think about it as well, let's say you're a growing company. It's not just about time savings and less headcount, as in cost efficiency and a cost reduction exercise. But let's say you're a growing business. Often in a growing business, when someone has to repeat a process repeatedly, errors start coming into the equation. So by having an automated process, you can reduce errors, and it's also more scalable as well. So it's not necessarily just the benefit of cost reduction you've got to think about. You think about, as I grow my business, is this scalable, or am I going to not just have one person doing it, but 5 additional people doing it?
Yeah. Okay, so let's say we're going to do it. We've got some candidates, for RPA. I mean, what would you say, if you were going to give me, I don't know, the top 3 benefits that you think businesses would see if they took the plunge and implemented an RPA solution? What would a business expect to gain from that?
Well, I think once you've given a consultancy or a vendor some requirements, what are the processes that you think you would like to automate? Or perhaps you ask them, we think we'd like to automate these processes, can you review our business and suggest any other ones? Then have a business case. So how much is it going to cost? What's the cost out as a result of doing it? And then you've got to balance that against any longer term investments. So if they're thinking of putting a new ERP system in 2 years' time, it might not pay off by the time a new investment's planned. So you've got to consider that. But assuming you've got to the stage where you've got the business case, you realise that if you don't do something, that as the business grows, that cost is just going to grow, or it's not going to scale that well. If we go back to the email example, might be great in a tiny little bootstrap startup for people to send emails, but not great as a business grows, and prone to errors as well.
Yeah, true.
So I think the benefits of RPA is just that it can handle high volume repetitive tasks and make it scalable for growing business needs. And you've got to bear in mind that there might not be an investment plan to make a larger investment in the business at the time, or it might be just that process is not a core process. So what are some challenges organisations might face when implementing RPA in finance and procurement? We've often talked about managing change and resistance to change. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's probably the same 3 that you would see in any other transformation. There's a worry about cost. What's going to be my yes, I'm going to get, I might get savings through efficiency, but it costs me a ton of money up front. But actually now a lot of these solutions are, they are cost effective, they're online. Frankly, go and watch YouTube and you can go and watch 100 videos about how it works. Yes, we're going to talk about cybersecurity in a future coffee break, but there are now APIs that pretty much connect things with most things. So worries about technology fit are also probably overplayed, which probably leaves the really big one, which is just that human resistance to change. And look, it is worth talking about this because, particularly if you're working in an industry which is, really dependent on people, maybe unionized, anything where you propose you're going to replace human endeavor with RPA is going to have to be something that you handle delicately, because naturally people are going to be concerned. In my experience, where we have replaced, actually what I found is that by freeing people from what are frankly awful, repeated, boring tasks, by using them then on things, redirecting their efforts onto things which truly add value, is just rewarding for everybody. And do you know what? The one thing that I hear all the time about why we can't adopt RPA is because what we do is so different or special. We do something bespoke, and therefore, RPA might work for those generic companies. Pretty hard to think in the list of things we've talked about. Nobody does anything special, and in fact, if you ever want to test that, go and ask one of your suppliers about your particular RFP form or invoice or whatever it is, and ask them how different it is to everybody else's, and you'll probably just get told the font and the logo. In which case, no, what you do isn't so different. So that overcoming that barrier of we're special is a big one.
Or even if you do have like some quirks, like let's say this customer likes the invoice to be presented in this summary format, or this invoice likes to have this information and the booking reference and the PO in this sort of format. Again, they're rules that you can create, aren't they? There's like if it's think about RPA as a complicated if formula. If this customer do this, if this customer do this. And it's basically the same with any sort of, laborious process where you're just creating a list of rules and asking it to automate
and absolutely.
against
And by
them.
the way, look, exceptions make the world turn around. So, I've been doing a piece of work with a clothing company, and they're doing a big SAP integration. So a lot of what they're doing is RPA. It's embedded within SAP, but it's automating the whole sort of purchase order invoice. They have got suppliers who they still deal with by fax.
Wow.
Fax. And we're talking about a one man mum and pop organization who do specialist hand sewing repairs on garments. Now, they're never, ever going to be on the receiving end of an RPA process because that's not just how they work. But that doesn't mean you're going to get rid of that supplier because they do something brilliant.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's an exception, but you can build that into the rules, which is if it's this supplier, no, we're going to do that via, carrier pigeon or whatever else you send it with.
Carrier pigeon.
And that's allowed, right? So, resistance check. Okay, so here we go. They're the blocks. What about the future? If you ask me, we're going to come back to that same term we talked about, artificial intelligence, and it's AI is doing two things in RPA. We're getting pretty close to the point where AI can self-evolve your processes. So AI can look at your whatever RPA process you've put in place and can optimize it. So you've actually got AI that's beginning to tune and adapt your processes. And, quite honestly, there'll be a number of people who are quite worried by that prospect. Equally, there'll be a group of people who have no issue with that at all. That's what AI does. And I think, therefore, this kind of idea of cognitive RPA, something that actually thinks and improves, self-heals as it's working, I think is going to be coming. And I think, apart from that, actually, it's the two things which tech and integration of tech are bringing, and it's no different in RPA tech, is ever wider integration and ease of integration with legacy systems wherever you're, whatever data it's pulling, which means that, adoption for that kind of that short to medium term benefit that we talked about while waiting for, you to make a bigger decision about, like, is this an ERP bigger solution, or is this let's get it out of our business and into the hands of a partner or an outsourcer? I think it's just, it just makes sense to do it. And you know what, if you haven't touched it, if you haven't tried it, like I say, I'm joking aside, YouTube is a really good place to go and start to see what it is and how it works. But equally, just, talk to your team and say, what are the things that we just do a lot of that is really dull? We repeat doing it. Should we just run a single pilot, just one pilot, to find out how it works, how we feel, what can we learn? Because that's just a great first step.
Yeah. And doing a proof of concept whenever you're looking to improve something is always a great idea.
I totally agree. Well, there we go.
Okay.
RPA.
Yes. So that's it for this week. We'll see you on the next Procurement and Finance Coffee Break when
will.
we think we're discussing cybersecurity.
Well, there we go. It was too secret for us to know. Never mind. Anyway, take care, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.